Only time you fail is when you stop. Because if you don't stop, you are just on your journey.
Can I share one of my ways that I think about fail?
Go ahead. I love it.
This is so good. It's a faithful attempt in learning. There's another acronym for you. A faithful attempt in learning. It's feedback. That's what failure is. It's feedback. It gives you results to say, I can make an adjustment here and I'm going to get a little bit better results. Hey, Levelin Up Nation. It is another Levelin Up podcast with your host, Brigham Blackham. I'm your success story strategist, and I'm so stoked to have William Blake, the dyslexic coach, on today. We are going to be talking about how to destroy learned helplessness. Now, this is something that I think all of us can benefit from. And whenever we have a kid that's going through some of this, or we have in our business, we feel like we're struggling and we create this learned helplessness, we're going to give some strategies to overcome this learned helplessness and be able to get empowerment in your life. Now, I've got a little bit of a background that I want to share on William before we get started. So William Blake is a dyslexic achievement coach. He empowers adult dyslexics to build confidence and achieve their goals. That's exactly what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be overcoming challenges in reading, speaking, writing. William has become an award-winning speaker and best-selling author, using his personal experience with dyslexia as a superpower that supercharges his positivity. And he is solution focused. His mindset is all about making sure he can empower and give back to his community. Now, as a social media strategist, podcast host, and executive team member at the Champion Circle, William excels in fostering connections, leading mastermind groups, and creating uplifting content. And that's exactly what this is today, because we want to make sure that you can grow and you can instill that belief in yourself. So William, welcome to Levelin Up, my friend. How are you doing today?
Doing so good. How are you, Brigham?
Oh, excellent.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Man, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Well, let's dive in here first. Now, I think we should probably define what learned helplessness is. I'm sure this term comes up often in your line of work. So what is learned helplessness, and how can we conceptualize this in a business context?
In the business context, because a lot of people I work with don't really focus on like the business side, because I work with dyslexics and usually adult dyslexics. I do some things with teenagers and youth, but that's more about focusing on like unlimited belief and kind of that first mindset and everything. But on the side of like a business and everything, we all have habits. Some are good, some are bad, right? And it's the conscious awareness that we have, that as we are able to be more conscious of the habits that have occurred over time, that we can then keep and strengthen the good and then get away the bad. Because like myself, I've been overweight since the 8th grade. And it's been a mindset of mine that I am overweight. That's been a thing that's been playing in my mind ever since middle school. And because of that, it's been 15, 20 years that this habit has been introduced and just conditioned into my life. And I don't know about you, Brigham, but it takes a while to break a habit that you've been doing for 15 years.
Yeah, that seems like you need to have some pattern interrupts and figure out a way to make a shift.
Exactly. And you said it. It's the pattern interrupt. So it's being intentional. And as you're intentional, you're able to break up the parts of you from the past that are just like, those aren't serving me, and then able to go forward. So when it comes to business and comes to going forward, either in entrepreneurship or in the job that individuals have, it's about first off figuring out I can believe in myself, and then switching that mindset. And then after you work on that belief and mindset, then there are a couple things down the road that you're able to switch afterwards.
I love it. So really dialing in on those habits, the routines that serve you. And when I think of learned helplessness, I'm going to give even a little bit deeper definition here. I think this is helpful. When you have done something long enough that you have multiple points of data that this is not for you or it's not working, you need to have sometimes a coach or a mentor come and say, hey, just because you have been going down this path long enough that you're not getting good results doesn't mean that you can't get good results. It doesn't mean that you can't be a success. And all different areas of life. It just means that the way you've been going about it is not a pattern that works yet. We can find different micro shifts, and sometimes a micro shift can create a macro gain, making a little shift from just regular water going to hydrogenated water. Little tiny things that allow you to see, I can do a little bit better today in getting more sleep. I can do a little bit better today in the words that I choose to use, in creating possibilities for myself, in my language, being able to make sure that what I'm saying, is it on the vibration that's going to be positive and help me get through all of these ideas? Or is it going to take some of that vitality, that energy from me as I speak it into existence? Because we get to define our life by the language we choose. So William, as you dive in with people and help them destroy some of these learning blocks, what is one of the tips or the tricks that you've learned to be able to help neutralize some of those negatives so that you can build positives?
Can I share two?
Yes, do it.
I'm just that guy. Someone asked me to share 3 things, I share 4. I just love giving value to everyone. The first thing that comes up to my mind was something that you brought up, which is the small steps that lead into, over time, it changing. I have this acronym that I have. It's LIGHT, because my one word why is light. Everything that I do revolves around it. And I found myself being like, I want to find this acronym, and I hope I'm using the right word, where you put a word to each letter.
Yeah, acronym, you got it.
Awesome, sweet. Yo, dyslexia. I want to figure out with the acronym of LIGHT, because that's just a lot of what I do. And so I was able to figure out 5 words that go with it. L is for love. I is for inspiration. G is for gratitude. H is for hope. And then T is for time. And so
I love that.
What you brought up was something I want to share with G, in gratitude. Because if you want to change your attitude, you change your gratitude. Just like if you want to change your mental state, change your physical state. Because it's about the movement, it's about the momentum to go forward and do whatever we're aiming towards. And I have this activity I call the Grateful 3, of which helps with gratitude. So with the Grateful 3, anytime a negative thought occurs, anytime something comes in that is just not working for you in the realm of mindset, then you just pattern interrupt, come up with 3 things you're grateful for. So if you're driving down the road and someone cuts you off, your mind starts, we've all been there. I've been there. Your mind start going on like that little person. Stop. 3 things you're grateful for. Oh, I'm grateful for my wonderful car. I'm grateful for the hands I can use to drive and my steering wheel. But what I can also use this hands for is to flip the, nope, we're going to stop right there. 3 more things you're grateful for. Oh, I'm grateful for my house, grateful for my wife, and grateful for my kids. Right? It's the process of overhauling with gratitude so that you can start pushing out the negativity. Because for years, 10, 15, 20, 40 years, depending on how long you've been having this habit of maybe some negative thoughts, maybe some toxic reactions going on, it takes a lot, because you're not just starting from point 0 and going up towards it. You're starting from the back end and trying to overhaul and push it forward. So think of it like as a bowl where, let's just say it's full of beans. The white beans are the positive thoughts and the black ones are the negative. It's full of black beans. Every time we drop one thought in, which is the bean of negativity, we want to then drop 3 in of gratitude. And as we do that, when you start off short term, absolutely, it's not going to look like you're doing anything. It just looks like you're adding color to a bowl of black beans. But over time, as you continue to do it, that gratitude is going to then surpass the thoughts of negativity. And that bowl that we have of our mind is going to start looking more grateful. You're going to start looking and have those white beans in this example.
I love it. So if I can understand this, I want to make sure that I've got the idea here. Instead of having people read between the lines on the freeway, you think of those 3 things and you replace that negativity with positivity. And if you do that long enough, it's like those black beans get covered up, and eventually you move them into a larger bowl maybe, and you only have those white beans as many as possible at least. and that gratitude is overflowing. So did I do okay on the
You did.
conceptualization?
And as you said that, I think there's a better analogy that I can start using, but more like an hourglass.
Oh,
So
that's good.
the top of it is the hourglass, and every time one thought goes in, another thought comes out.
I just
Just
happen to
like
have
that.
one.
I love it. Just like that. And so it's not that the old is going to stay in there forever. It's that we are replacing what was in there.
I
And
love
so
it.
as it comes out, we're putting more in. And then over time, it gets to what we talked about, being more grateful.
That's excellent. And I've also thought of this as kind of like a bucket that has holes in it. Have you ever experienced like carrying a bucket full of water, but there's a hole or two in it and it just drips out as you're moving? Like maybe you need to go
Yes.
water some cows or something, or you need to go and put some water in a potted plant. Every time you put water in there, it seeps out a little bit every single time you move. If you are always filling that up, but you don't plug up the negative with the positive, it's almost like the negative is putting more holes in the bucket. And as you fix the holes, you can keep more of that gratitude in there. Hope that makes sense. But just the idea of, even if you are always filling yourself with positivity, if you don't do your best to combat that negative thought and say, what is the thing that's triggering me to have that negative thought? Is there a way that I can respond more positively? Is there a way that I can respond to this and maybe even avoid some of those triggers? This is where it gets into your environment and the people you surround yourself with. Because if you are constantly in a state of anxiety and stress and frustration because of your chosen environment, it may be time to shift your environment. Like you said, get a physical movement of going from where you are to another place. And it's this idea of, have you ever heard of the water tower brigade? I think it's something like that. Like where in corporate America, a lot of people will go and while they're filling up their water, they just kind of bicker and say, "Oh, I can't believe this person does this." And
Yeah.
I got this idea from, I think it was the energy bus. Energy vampires are those people that just bring you down. That their energy, like, it just draws out all of the positiveness of your life. And if you're constantly surrounded by people that just are cantankerous and angry and fault finding and frustrated, it basically feels like you're getting squeezed. But I've got another analogy that I think may be helpful here. Have you
Love
ever thought about what happens when you squeeze a lemon? What type of juice comes out of a lemon?
it. I hope lemon juice.
Oh, I hope lemon juice, right? If you squeeze an orange, what comes out?
Orange juice.
Orange juice. So if hate is coming out of us when we're under pressure, if frustration is coming out of us when we're under pressure, if we lash out, guess what was inside of us? The same thing. So if we constantly fill our life with good, just like you said, like those little bean deposits, little white beans that represent the positive things, then when we get squeezed, we're put under pressure. We have people cut us off. We do things in our life that sometimes you have those circumstances that are really inconvenient. It is in those moments where you get squeezed that you get to see who you actually are on the inside, that pressure. So what does that make you think of, William, as far as your practice with helping dyslexic adults overcome some of their self-limiting beliefs?
The first thing it makes me think of is to have grace with yourself, because I think a lot of people, when we talk about changing and we talk about the implementation of evolving and transforming your mindset, a lot of people will beat themselves up because they look at individuals who have been doing it for like 10, 15, I don't know why I keep using those two, but like we've been doing it for decades, right? Like we've been working on it hard, and because of that we have the results. But a lot of people who don't have the results and who are starting out, they might feel a little helpless, not have as much hope. I just want to give a little grace to those individuals, like saying that it's okay to start from where you're starting. That's where we started when we started on our journey. It's just now we're being more conscious about how we go forward. We are
And
choosing what we think about.
I've got another thing. I wanted to not give a nod to my friend, Greg Kimball. He says this: stop getting angry about your results for the work that you didn't do. So just like what you're saying, sometimes we compare ourselves at the beginning with someone that's at the end. And that comparison is one of the thieves of your happiness. It's one of the things that stops your progress faster than almost anything. I'm going to share a story. You ready for this? This is a story from when I was a missionary.
Love it.
You ready for it? You love it? Okay. So when I was first learning how to speak Mandarin Chinese, I was called to Taiwan. I'm going to go like this. Whoop, Taiwan's up there. I have my little flag. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Anyway, I was called to Taiwan. I knew that I needed to learn Mandarin to be able to fulfill my mission, to be able to fulfill my calling. And I was in the missionary training center in Provo, Utah. Now, the first few months, it was in the dead of winter. And I don't know if you ever heard of seasonal affective disorder. You heard of this before? Being sad. SAD, sad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I had multiple moments where I felt completely overwhelmed. I started comparing myself to other missionaries that were learning and picking up the language faster, in my opinion. And I said, oh man, I can only get 5 or 6 words today. Elder Mick's got 20 or 30. What's wrong with me? Why am I not progressing fast? And one of the moments that shifted everything for me, I remember I was doing our language learning platform online, and I just got so frustrated, overwhelmed. I was like, why can't I do this? And I had these negative thought patterns, this negative language. Put my head on the keyboard, and I said a little prayer. I was like, Heavenly Father, if you want me to do this, I need to figure out how to improve, and I need to do it with kindness. And there was this overwhelming thought of, not only can you do this, who I call, I equip. And this idea that when you are willing to do the work, even when the results are not immediately seen, but you do the work and you put in the work consistently, that depression that I was feeling, that force, that pressure, it was turning my language into a diamond. But it takes time, and you can't focus on the things that take months or years to develop in minutes and hours. If you look at developing a language and say, hey, in the last hour that I've been studying, I can't read a newspaper yet. Like, we probably need a little more time, and we need to get in that momentum. But anything you are doing will build upon itself. And there's an expression, Shurja Hali Chaja Chenli. The difference of a hair can be 10,000 miles if it goes uncorrected. But think about that course correction. If you stay on the path, you do the things every single day, there's this perseverance that comes from it. You can get to whatever destination you want. And for me, that was mastering Mandarin Chinese. It took time, and I felt like I was slow. But the thing is, I kept going. I kept making progress, and I kept doing the things necessary to understand. And as a missionary, it was a shift of, I don't need to focus on anybody else. I need to figure out, am I better today than I was yesterday? And there's another expression in Chinese, Di shui chuan shi. The dripping water penetrates the stone. Because it's consistency, it's always dripping. It's dripping over and over and over in the same place. That's how it penetrates that stone. So for you, what are ways that you help people get into momentum, get into this consistency, and be persistent towards their goals?
Yeah. Before I share that, I'd love to share a quote that came up to my mind. I think it was Stephen McCartney that said it. It was, the master is the master because the master has failed more than the novice has tried.
So true.
As we are novices in what we're doing, and all of us are novices when we first start out. When we're in those beginning stages, we do exactly what you said. We compare ourselves for people who've been in there and doing it. Just like I hate how social media is just a highlight reel, because we compare our worst days to other people's best days. Ain't nobody besides Donald Trump or someone posting about like exactly what's going on in his life. It's just a straight up highlight reel. And so we can't compare. And when it comes to that quote, When you're a novice, you just keep trying, and keep failing, because failing is not one and done. I hate using the word failure. I don't think failure is used in my vocabulary unless it's like this, a teaching moment, because failing, the only time you fail is when you quit.
Yeah.
Only time you fail is when you stop, because if you don't stop, you are just on your journey.
Can I share one of my ways that I think about fail?
Go ahead. I love it.
This is so good. It's a faithful attempt in learning. There's another acronym for you. A faithful attempt in learning. It's feedback. That's what failure is. It's feedback. It gives you results to say, I can make an adjustment here and I'm going to get a little bit better results. Wow, that was not the most effective thing in this instance. I wonder if I tried it slightly different in this way. And every time you get feedback, it's almost like when you are chiseling out a sculpture, every big strike with that chisel takes off some of those rough edges. And eventually the sculpture that is inside that stone the whole time gets revealed over time. And those failures knock away and chip away at the difficulties in our life, so that as we get more polished, as we reveal the character that's underneath, then we can show the world who we actually are on the inside. We don't have to pretend. We don't have to put on a face. Say, this is actually who I am. I'm being genuine. I love to connect with people. Love to do all these different things. For you, it sounds like you love to instill belief in people. You love to empower, and you love to help people that are adults with dyslexia be able to overcome some of those learning blocks so they can actually read and speak with confidence. So tell us one story. I would love to hear a story from you about what it feels like to help someone overcome a challenge like that.
Yeah, I'd love to share that story. And then if I can go back to your previous question,
Yeah.
More implementation stuff with that. The story that came out to my mind was this wonderful individual. His name was Jordan. Don't need last names. His name was Jordan. Wonderful guy. And as I was working with him, it was very powerful to see the change that he had. When he first started out working with me, he started out with just broke up with his girlfriend. We have all been there when we've had that breakup. Didn't feel like he had any hope. He was on the verge. He had depression and on the verge of more physical acts in that way. But working with him, he started at this place. And as we simply just got on calls, and it wasn't normal ones to where I just have all this technical and strategic stuff that I can share with individuals. It was more of me sitting there listening and asking questions and him going through it. And as he went through it, he went from an individual who seemed a little sad and seemed just didn't have anything going for him to an individual who then was going out rock climbing, who then was going out and achieving stuff with his goals, who was going out and just like crushing the world. And this was, it took a couple months to get there, but just the transformation I saw with this guy was absolutely amazing. And from there to today, he's been just on fire with what he's doing. And he's brought his family members in with him to be able to go and do the rock climbing with him. Now it's a huge family activity that him and his brothers and sisters do. It's just such cool transformation that went from someone who was surrounded in darkness, and darkness being the challenge, the obstacle that Jordan faced, to someone who really went through the pain, because it is through pain that we progress. And instead of going around the bush, instead of going and hitting all that fluff, he went through it. And because he went through it, he saw that spark, that fire on the other side. And he was able to come out as just this transformed individual and is now just thriving. And I absolutely love that for him. So I wanted to share that story and lead that into some of the implementation stuff that individuals can do to really overcome their limitations and start that movement towards what they're aiming to go. I talked a little bit before about belief and mindset. That's really where the first step is, because if you don't believe that it's going to happen, it's not going to happen. Ain't nobody changed because they didn't have any new information or didn't think differently. There's no reason to. We are individuals who have minds that love comfort. Comfort being just habits that we've done over and over and over again. That's why it's so hard during New Year's resolutions as we set new goals. A couple days later, our mind's like, this is not us. And unfortunately, a lot of people fall down on the wayside and go back to their habits. It's because we just live in that comfortable thing. So having that belief and changing that mindset with the Grateful 3 and some other activities is a great thing to do. But then after that, what do you do? If you know that you can achieve it, if you listen to Tony Robbins and Alex Hormozy and Lewis Howes, and as you listen to them and get to that just they do gratitude, but more of a, you can do this. There is more belief. Then it goes into the direction point. So there's 3 different points. The first one's direction. Where are you going and where are you at right now? So if you think about it, I call this being a GPS. So like the Maps app on our phone, you open the maps, ask for 2 things. The first thing, where are you going? Where in the world do you want to go today? The second thing is where you're at right now. And usually a lot of people don't know that because it's just automatically put in their phone. But when you have those 2 things, then you can figure out the direction that you're headed. So where are you going? That's the ultimate goal. That's the finish line. That's the dream that you want to achieve. Where is that for you? And then where you're at right now, we got to be a little bit more truthful with ourselves. This is asking the harder questions, because I don't know about you, but if someone asks me, hey, Willie, how you doing? I'm like, doing good, when I might not be doing so good. So it's asking the questions that are hard. Physical, and for some examples, the physical side. Do I have a 6-pack? Do I have the energy to carry me throughout the day? Or am I sitting here with a keg needing to lose a little bit of weight? Socially, am I able to carry a conversation and talk with an individual? Or is it hard to ask questions? Financially, am I financially independent? Do I have money coming in? Or am I living paycheck to paycheck? Right? These aren't easy questions to ask ourselves and come to the realization that we might be lacking in them. But when we do and we become more pinpointed at exactly where we are, we're able to know the direction we're heading. So that's the first one with being a GPS and knowing your direction. The second part of it is reverse engineering your goal. So whatever your goal is, that finish line, think of it as if you're going to a restaurant and you have the little kids menu and it has the maze. I don't know about you. I always do it to where I start at the finish line and work my way backwards. Then finally, when I put crayon to paper, then I can go through it just flawlessly. That's what we got to do with our goals. We got to start at the finish line and work our way back, because as we do, then we create the plan and blueprint needed to go forward. And it's creating those milestones along the way. Quick example with that is with one of my clients. He wanted to have a girlfriend. So I'm like, all right, let's try this out. He wanted a girlfriend. Awesome. How do you get a girlfriend? Well, you got to be dating a girl. How do you date a girl? Well, you got to have a girl that's a friend, right? How do you have a girl that's a friend? Well, you got to have a friend group where there's girls in there. Awesome. How do you have a friend group? Breaks off into 2. 1, you got to be at the places in which the friend group is. So we'll put a pin in that. And then the second one of you got to be able to talk with your friends, to then talk to the girl, to then date the girl, to then get the girlfriend, right?
Yes.
How do you do that? That breaks off into 2. 1 being, you got to be real. Like, no one wants to date a fake person. So this is where self-confidence, this is where self-love and self-belief comes in. So put a pin in that. Then the other one is the actual skill of communication. Asking the questions, being able to listen, being able to have short conversations as well as deep ones, like that skill. So that's the third pin. So from there, just like the simple of just wanting a girlfriend, which doesn't seem like something that could work in this, you just simply reverse engineer it backwards. And then this individual is able to have 3 things that they can go forward with. They need to find places where their friend groups are. They need to have self-confidence and work on themselves and have a life, you could say. And then is the skill of communication. And so those 3 things he was able to take and then have a blueprint to go forward with. So for everyone who's listening, start at the end, whatever it is that you want, because I've done this with many things. I've done this for myself multiple occasions, and I found that it works. And I hope it can work for you guys. Find that thing at the end, work backwards, and you'll have that set of milestones and the blueprint to go forward. And then lastly,
end in mind, right? Yeah. Go ahead. Lastly, let's hear this last one.
Yeah. Lastly, as I've gone on this for a while, is daily consistent action. So this is what I call the 2% rule. The 2% rule is if your goal is 100%, that's the completion, then taking 2% action every single day to get you to that goal. Now, with that 2%, a lot of people come back at me and say, well, Willie, why can't we focus on just the 100%? Like, we got this. Why can't we focus on the 1%? Well, in my experience, if you focus on the 100%, you hit a realm of analysis paralysis. And when you're there, this is where the procrastinators and the fake perfectionists live. There is just so much going on and so much you have to tackle that you're paralyzed and you can't even take the simplest of actions today. On the flip side, if you focus on 1%, it doesn't get a fire within you to go and do what you need, and you don't really get out of your comfort zone. That's why I love 2%, because when you do 2% every day, it's small enough to where you're not overwhelmed by the craziness of it all, but then also big enough to get that fire, to get that passion out of you, and then get into that growth zone to help you hit that goal and start to transform your life. I think one of my favorite things from Alex Hormozi is that if your goal is $1 million and you reach it, it was never about the $1 million. It was about the person who you became to then make that $1 million. And so wrapping this all in a nice little package for everyone, as you go along this journey and these few implementations that I gave you, realize that it's about the person that you're going to become at the end more than achieving the actual goal. For people who are dyslexic, who have learning disabilities, and who are really struggling with the challenges that they face, these things are great to set goals for. Making $1 million, having a six-pack, being able to be a master communicator. That's great. But when it comes down to it, it's about the individual that you come out on the other side when that happens.
Beautifully said. I think that is a great way to think about any goal. A lot of times it is your personal development that holds you back from achieving any goal that you have set. It's not that you can't run a $10 million business. It's that you haven't yet become the person that owns that and that is able to handle it. As you become that person, suddenly the level and pressure of your problems increase and you solve more valuable and intense problems. And I think as we get into understanding how to overcome a lot of these learning blocks, it comes down with making sure that you identify and you know what is it that you actually want. Sometimes you need a coach to stay out of your exact life and see that third party perspective to say, if this is where you want to go and this is where you are, we probably need to be facing the right direction.
Right.
Because often we get stuck in this comparison of, well, this person did it in this way and this person did it in that way and then this person did it in this way. And it's almost like you're getting racked with all these different choices.
Like the torture machine.
Exactly. You're just like getting pulled in all these different directions. But as soon as you say, you know what, my choices matter, and it's those constant daily actions or consistent daily actions that you brought up, moving in the direction that you want, designing the life that you want, and creating that vision of what does it look like being that person. Like I had Ron Williams, who's like Mr. 7-time Olympia, bodybuilder of the decade. He was an amazing guy on my podcast a couple months ago. And he talked about how he became Mr. Olympia was he found out what did all the previous Mr. Olympias do as far as going around the track and doing lunges, all these different activities. And he said, well, that's what the previous Mr. Olympia did. I am Mr. Olympia. I just haven't gotten the title yet. So I'm going to not only do all the iterations, I'm going to do a few more than is expected, because that's what the current Mr. Olympia does. So he found what their standard was, and he increased the standard. And his minimums were so intense that he was able to do this day in, day out for years, and over a decade was able to win hundreds of different bodybuilding awards. And you think about how you can apply this to business. You need to be before you can do. You become through the doing, but you need to be who you are. And as you accept whatever it is you want to follow the I am statement, I am an educator, or I am a podcaster, I am whatever it is, you get to identify. Nobody else can use I am for you. That is a distinction that only you as the individual can make. As a business owner, you say, I am a successful entrepreneur. I am someone that creates value. As you create these affirmations and you use them and you live into them, eventually your processes in your mind will start to align with what you want. Because if it doesn't fit your identity, then you'll say, you know what, that choice doesn't make sense for me in this moment, because that's not who I am. And it's different. So for me, I've been doing this health transformation the last 3 months, went from 245 to 204 as of yesterday. So it's been a big shift in my mentality, and I am healthy. I am choosing to be healthy. I am living my life the very best that I can, and I'm choosing vitality over convenience. And sometimes we get stuck in that idea that, oh, this is the rule that my coach gave me, or this is the rule that somebody else gave me to live by. And you have all these different things social media tells you to do. And hey, do this and do this, and you'll be successful. Do this, and you'll make $1 million. Do this, and you'll have financial freedom. Do this. And eventually it feels like you're just absolutely covered in all these ideas. But as soon as you say, I am an entrepreneur, then that cuts through all of the shoulds. Hey, you should do this, you should do that. And then you should all over yourself. You don't worry about the should, you worry about who you are. And as soon as you say, this is who I am, I'm willing to do this, period, because it is my choice, it is my rule, then any feedback you get from a coach, any feedback you get from a mentor, you adopt it and you internalize it because it's your identity. So in the last few moments that we have together, would you mind talking about how you create your identity and how that is so important to overcome some of these learning blocks?
I love that question. Such powerful. And one thing on the side of that is I love how you use the word yet when you say things. You're like, you haven't gotten this yet. And I absolutely love that, because it is so true. Whatever we want, we just haven't gotten it yet. And it opens it from I should do this to I can do this. Because like you said, we should all over ourselves all the time. We should do this, we should do that. Instead, it's change your vocabulary. Change it from should to could. Because if you change it to could, I could do this, I could do that, that puts back the power of responsibility and back the power of the choice that you have to make the decision. And then it kind of lessens the burden of, if I didn't do it, that was my choice, and that's okay. Rather than, oh, I should have done that. Man, now my life is going to be off the rails and I'm going to be so sad. And this is going to, like, no, that's not what happens. Like, life has up and downs. But when you change that to could, it changes that possibility and that power we're able to get back with us. So I love that you use the word yet with what you did. If I could be a little bit vulnerable with these I am statements, I say this to myself, but I don't say it out loud. I used to, but I've kind of slummed away. And I think it's because I thought about what other people thought about me when I said it. When I started out on my journey, I loved Tony Robbins, and I still do. He's a fantastic individual, and I still look up to him. He's the top person in the industry. When I first started, I didn't really know who I was. It was covered by so many leaves of
Mhm.
what other people thought about me, years of bad habits, and just really conditionings that I unconsciously and subconsciously put myself into. And because of that, and that question that you asked, I think that in the beginning, sometimes you can just write it down and figure out who you are, and that's great. But I don't think that works for everyone. And I guess I can't even say that. It doesn't work for everyone because it didn't work for me. For
Mm.
me, I had to jump into the persona of someone else. And my I am statement when I started out was, I am the next Tony Robbins. I would
Yeah.
shout that from the rooftops. I would say that to every single individual. And it was so crazy that when I was like, I am Tony Robbins, as I want to be my mentor. I want to be like that individual who's out there helping people and sharing and being able to donate millions of dollars to individuals who don't have it. I was so surprised about how much kickback I got from it. From people who I thought and probably are doing the stuff that Tony was saying and doing the stuff that everyone else was saying that we should do. They'd always come back and be like, well, Willie, you're not Tony Robbins. Just be yourself. Willie, why the heck are you making that goal? That's not even possible. Like all these, and they weren't all negative. Some were from a place of just like neutrality, and others were from a place of what others considered love. But if I can be vulnerable like that's what affects me the most. But how I got through it was just keep saying, I am the next Tony Robbins. I am the next Tony Robbins. And as I took on that persona, when choices came, like you mentioned, I could make the decision of, is this helping me be the individual like Tony Robbins is, or is this pushing away from me being my true self? And so from there, it's just like, no, that's not serving me. That's not serving the entrepreneurship that I'm aiming towards. So I'm not going to do that. And then over the years, then I've been able to more discover who I am as Mr. William Blake, the dyslexic achievement coach, and still loving Tony in that. I don't think it's from a point of pride, but I'm just like, Tony Robbins is the first William Blake, right? It's just like how you frame it. And love Tony. He's super amazing, and I make that kind of as a joke. But it really comes down to like now, after taking on that alter ego, that persona, it then helped me to discover more of myself. So with individuals out there who are trying to figure it out, one, just sit in a quiet room and try to figure it out. Like just be with yourself. We are so busy nowadays. If the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. We are just so busy nowadays. And because of that, I think we're a little scared, because if we slow down, we might actually find something out about ourselves. So if we slow down, then we're able to figure out more about ourselves, and maybe we'll self-discover who we are and be able to go from there. In addition to that, if that doesn't work, then find someone whose life that you love, find someone who has those same values and do those same things, and then start thinking of the question, like, what would they do in this situation? Would they do this? It's kind of like the famous thing, like, what would Jesus do in that way? What would you do? What would the future you do in that instance? And I think from there, being able to come up with that question and think of the long term in mind, the end in mind, that then you're able to make better choices and be
William,
able to go.
I just had a missionary that I was teaching with, 2 weeks ago, and he had a little bracelet on. I was like, so what is that bracelet? He's like, you know the WWJD, what would Jesus do? He's like, this is the answer. He would love first. I was like, oh, that's so good. He would love first. And anytime you choose a mentor or a coach, there's something about their life. There's something about the way they live. There's something about who they are that you want to ascribe to be like. Like, you chose Tony Robbins. I love Tony. He's got a wealth of experience. He's helped literally tens of thousands and probably millions of people at this point change their life, their mindset, their skill set, their tool set. There's nothing wrong with saying, I want to be like them, but you don't want to be him, right?
Mhm.
You want to be your own version of who you are. And I think as you choose mentors, there are things you can say, you know what, I really love the way he does this. I'm going to take that skill. I'm going to apply it to myself. I'm going to take this skill and apply it to myself. And eventually we'll be able to live into our own greatness. Like you've chosen to be this dyslexic coach. You could have chosen to serve anybody. But you said, you know what, this is who resonates with me. I have dyslexia. I was able to overcome it. And here's some different strategies how. You think about the people that you serve. If you can love them first, then you can start to live into your greatness. But if you're always coming from how do I get from my audience? How do I get all these things and draw money out or draw all these different things out of people? It's a completely different experience. It's about, I would love to attract you because I'm willing to give. I'm open to it. So before we go, we've got just like a moment left. How do people find you online, William? And how do people stay connected? Because I love the conversation. I want to make sure they can keep connected to you.
Absolutely. People can jump over to my website. It's williamblakelight, light.com. There they'll be able to find all my social links, all the things that are going on in my life. And it's the exact same over my social media. So it's William Blake _light, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere, all the places. It's that same thing.
I love it.
So that's where you can.
Well, thank you so much, William. It has been a pleasure chatting with you, my friend. And I know this isn't going to be the last time we are connecting. I'm so thankful for the insight that you brought, the light that you bring, and the empowerment that you give to every single person. So thank you for that. And guys, if you want to keep getting more and more value, hit that like and subscribe button. Go ahead and connect with us. We want to make sure that we continue to help add value every single day. We're here every Thursday. So grateful for you, and God bless. Thanks again, William.
Thank you.